What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and I have a great video for you guys today. As we're getting ready for the NHL draft, the rumors are going to start swirling, specifically north of the border out in Winnipeg. So we're hearing a lot of rumors, potentially what the future is for some of those guys like Pierre-Luc Dubois, Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, and of course, goaltender Connor Hellebuyck. And we have to discuss Connor Hellebuyck in today's video because last week my ears definitely perked up when I heard this Athletic article from a very good insider on the Athletic, Michael Russo. He basically said if he becomes available, don't be surprised if Buffalo and New Jersey take big swings, implying Connor Hellebuyck. The Buffalo Sabres and New Jersey Devils are teams that have been listed as potential suitors and could show trade interest in the Winnipeg Jets goaltender. Connor Hellebuyck is a huge reason that there was any hope for the Winnipeg Jets this past season. He put up numbers that were definitely Vezina finalist worthy, and even though he was in the conversation, this is a guy that will be a very good goaltender for years to come. There's no conversation in my mind that he is going to be a favorite. And in my opinion, spoiler alert, in terms of who I think will win the Vezina this year, even though I am a New York Islanders fan with Sorokin on the board, I am going with Connor Hellebuyck. I think he's that good of a goalie. And if the Jets decide to trade this guy, there is a huge amount of value that they could be getting from some of these teams like the Sabres or the Jets or the Devils. So the first thing I want to talk about here is, what is the value going to be for Hellebuyck? Because it's a year from unrestricted free agency, right? And there's this sentiment out there, what would the Jets want back? I would say they take anything. I think the Jets will literally take anything in return. I would assume that it would be some kind of combination of a goalie, right? A young goalie prospect, which both of the teams have in New Jersey and Buffalo. Actually, multiple prospects that could fit that bill. You're probably looking at another young top 4 defenseman and probably a young top 6 forward. So there's a lot that could be done for both of these teams. And I'm going to make some mock trades for each of these teams. And I want to see what you guys think and what you come up with. But I think this could be kind of interesting. It's definitely a topic I wanted to discuss with you. So we're going to start off with the Buffalo Sabres. So Kevin Adams has not really made that big splash move yet with the Sabres, right? They've continued the process of the rebuild. They just missed out on the playoffs. But listen, Buffalo fans were so butthurt that the Islanders made the playoffs. I got to admit, it was kind of hysterical, but I digress. This is not their year, right? This past season. But in 2024, the Sabres are going to be a playoff team. Or at the very least, they're going to be in the running for a playoff spot. And if they had a goalie like Connor Hellebuyck, the sky is the limit for this team. Because I think last year their biggest weakness was in between the pipes. They're starting to develop that defense, right? You're starting to see guys like Owen Power, Jacob Bryson, starting to develop their game on the back end. Up front, they've gotten a lot better, right? Tage Thompson, Dylan Cousins, JJ Peterka's coming up, Jack Quinn. The veteran guys like Kyle Oposo. This is a team that is very capable of making the playoffs next year. Alex Tuck, right? One of the big guys up front. So when I look at the Sabres, they have a lot of prospects that could be moved if they really wanted to. And that's kind of where the conversation starts. Because if you want to look at the goalie prospect, I think it's pretty easy for the Sabres. You're going to choose one of Devin Levi or Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I would assume they would be willing to trade UPL. I think Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen would be a part of this package for the Sabres. I think they really like what they have in Devin Levi, and I don't know if they're ready to trade him. So, not to say that Devin Levi isn't available if Connor Hellebuyck goes the other way, but I think they would try to unload UPL before they did Devin Levi. And if the Jets are saying, well, we like the other pieces in the deal anyway, maybe we're willing to take UPL over Devin Levi anyway. So that's part of the conversation. So let's throw UPL on there for the Buffalo Sabres as the first asset. So that's your goalie. Honestly, I hate to say it, if I'm the Sabres, that first-round pick's going. I don't think there's any conversation. The Jets are going to try and recoup draft picks and prospects, and they would be taking the Jets' first-round pick this year. So now you've got the 2023 first-round, or the 2024 at this point, right? 2024 first-round pick, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. And now you got to take one of the young guys. So who are some of the young guys that could be had? Now, they're obviously not trading Tage Thompson. They're not trading Dylan Cousins. So who becomes available at this point? Casey Middlestat, I like Casey Middlestat, but if that's a guy that has to go the other way, I think they would do it. I don't think Peyton Krebs has the value to be worthy of trading. Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka are still so young, and with 2 years left on their entry-level contracts, I think the Sabres would like that extra money saved. So at this point, I think that's the guy that would probably go, would be Casey Middlestat. And I know he had a really good season with the Sabres last year. They really liked what he did. He had 59 points in 82 games. But with some of the other guys coming up in the system for the Sabres, it's one of those things where it's kind of it's money that you could save. And with really good center depth coming up this system, guys like former first-round picks Matthew Savoie and Yuri Kulich, those guys are going to probably take Casey Middlestat's spot on the roster in the fall. So Casey Middlestat at this point is actually a hindrance and a block to some of those guys making it to the big leagues, making it to the NHL. So I think they are willing to trade a guy like Casey Middlestat. He'll be an RFA next summer, so the Jets have some attainability with Casey Middlestat. So add him to the list. So now we have the 2024 first-round pick of the Sabres, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Casey Middlestat. Now to round out this deal, let's try and find a defenseman. So a defenseman that could be had, there's a lot on this list, but I think that the one that really stands out to me, the list kind of narrows itself down fairly quickly. And I like this guy. I think he's been a really good fit there. But considering they're not trading Owen Power, that's not happening. They just signed Matthias Samuelsson to a big extension. I think they're going to go with either it would either be Riley Stillman or Jacob Bryson. And in reality, I think it is Jacob Bryson. I think Jacob Bryson would be the guy that has to go. If I'm the Jets, I'm looking at this like, listen, we get another young defenseman. He's not probably going to be a top, a reliable top four defenseman, but even if he becomes a 5 or 6 defenseman, he's still 25 years old. He's still fairly young, and he's going to get a chance to develop on our roster. I think that would be something they're okay with. He's pretty, multi-dimensional. He could play the left side or the right side, so the Jets have a little flexibility there. And I think that's a defenseman that, like I said, you're not getting Dahlin or Samuelsson or Power in this deal, but if you're willing to take a guy like Jacob Bryson, it's not necessarily a bad pickup, and it's on top of what you're already getting in this deal, you're probably okay with that, right? So to kind of recap this deal, we've got a 2024 first-round pick of Buffalo, the main asset being Casey Middlestat, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, and Jacob Bryson. If you're a Jets fan, do you say yes to that? I want to hear what you guys think down below. So that's for the Buffalo Sabres. Now the New Jersey Devils. The Devils are really an interesting one because if they pull the trigger on this deal, what's interesting with their situation, especially in between the pipes, is who has the most value as a goalie? Is it Akira Schmid or Nico Daws? Because I think that's where this kind of comes down to, is one of those goalies. So same thing, you're trading your 2024 first round pick. Got it. I think the Devils would be okay with that. Now comes the next conversation of the goalie, right? So who's the goalie that would go here? Akira Schmid, he had a pretty good season. He had good numbers in the AHL, and I don't want to discount that because he played well in Utica. He has had a .900 save percentage since 2020 when he played in the USHL. Since then, with Sioux, he had a .921 save percentage in 2021. With Utica last season in 38 games, he had a .911 save percentage, and he had a .905 save percentage this year in Utica. So his numbers have been good. This is a guy that everybody's like, oh, Akira Schmid's come out of nowhere. Not really. This is a guy, he's been around for a little while and put together some really good numbers. So I think they're okay with that. Now, here's the thing. Would you be willing to trade Nico Daws? He's 22 years old. He was a third-round pick of the Devils back in 2020. And the Munich, the Munchen, the Germany native, has put together some pretty good numbers as well in New Jersey. In last season, in 25 games, he had an .893 save percentage, but as a 21-year-old, that's really not too bad. This season and last season in Utica, he's had a over .900 save percentage as well. So I think this kind of comes down to the Jets, if they prefer Nico Daws or if they prefer Akira Schmid. Two incredible names, by the way. But the good news for the Devils is whoever they don't trade gets to stay as a backup behind Hellebuyck. So you either have Connor Hellebuyck and Akira Schmid or Connor Hellebuyck and Nico Daws. Either way, that's a win for the Devils in my book, right? So let's just say, for argument's sake, let's just say it's Nico Daws, right? So Nico Daws goes out the other way. So you've got Nico Daws, your 2024 first-round pick. Now let's look at the forward. So who's the forward that ideal? Again, I don't know what the trade structure will look like. This is Connor Hellebuyck. This is a really good goalie. It's going to be expensive. So who would have to go the other way? Well, the Devils already like their group up front. So ideally, you're kind of running out of room here. So when I look at their forward group, you want to keep Jesper Bratt. You want to lock him up. Timo Meier, you want to keep him, lock him down. So who becomes kind of a guy you're willing to trade? Yegor Sharangovich, kind of interesting, but I don't think they're going to be willing to trade him. Dawson Mercer, you're probably not going to see him get traded, which leads me to look down to the AHL at a potential budding star, and that is Alexander Holtz. Everybody forgets Alexander Holtz. 21-year-old, drafted 7th overall back in the 2020 NHL draft. He's put together some really good numbers in the NHL and the AHL. In his limited time with the NHL roster, he's put up 6 points in 28 games. But in Utica this season, in 14 games, he put up 11 points. So he's almost a point per game guy in the American Hockey League, which is fairly decent. He just hasn't been able to put it together in the NHL. But again, you also consider the fact that he's been playing maybe not the most hockey with the Devils, right? He hasn't had enough consistency to really gain that confidence. And maybe with more ice time in a city like Winnipeg, Alexander Holtz will thrive and become that guy he's been destined to be as a former top 10 draft pick. So I'm going to go with Alexander Holtz as the forward prospect in this deal. Now that leads us to the defense. Who's the defenseman that they would be willing to move? And I think what's interesting about the case here is, you've got a couple of different options. And specifically, I look at Riley Walsh, Santeri Hataka, and Topias Vien. Those three guys are the three I'm really looking at. I don't think they're trading Simon Nemec. They're not trading Hughes. They're not trading Kevin Ball. I think it's going to be one of those other three. So Riley Walsh is a little bit older. He's already 24 years old. So maybe they are willing to move the Framingham, Massachusetts native. He's killed it in the AHL. Like, the last 2 seasons in 70 games, he's put up 40-plus points every year. So this is a guy that produces in the AHL. He is a bona fide AHL defenseman. Can he bring it to the NHL level? And I think the Jets would be willing to take a chance on Riley Walsh. He's an RFA this summer with arbitration rights. But the reality is, I think they'd be looking more at a guy like Santeri Hataka. Santeri Hataka, he's on the second year of his deal. He was one of the guys they got in the deal with the San Jose Sharks for Timo Meier. So Santeri Hataka comes in. He's put together decent numbers, but I think he was kind of a throwaway in the deal, and I don't think the Devils would be completely against trading him. He was a 6th-round pick back in 2019. So if you find a way to move in either Hataka or Walsh into this deal with Alexander Holtz in that first-round pick and Nico Daws, I think you're okay with that. So that's really the biggest asset in the deal. A former top 10 pick in Alexander Holtz, your first-round pick next year, and a really good goalie prospect in Nico Daws. I think the Jets would say yes to that as well. So between the two, I honestly would take the Buffalo trade, but definitely don't discount the Devils here, because I think the Devils might actually be willing to give up more than that, realistically, in order to make sure they get Connor Hellebuyck, because that has been the biggest issue for the Devils since 2018. Really, in reality, since Marty Brodeur left the Devils, right? We had one good season of Blackwood in 2018, but other than that, the Devils have not had that number one bona fide starting goalie. They've tried a lot of different combinations. And, they tried to bring in Corey Crawford. Remember that? They tried to bring in Corey Crawford. They tried Blackwood for a long term. Hasn't worked out. They've brought in other goalies. The end of Corey Schneider's tenure really stunk. Jonathan Bernier. They've tried a whole bunch of goalies here. Bring in Connor Hellebuyck, no matter what it costs you. Even if it costs you maybe one of those younger defensemen, right? Even if it is a better defenseman. Let's say you're willing to trade a Kevin Ball, right? Kevin Ball, your first-round pick, Nico Dawes, and Alexander Holtz. Would they be willing to do that, giving up a big defenseman like that, but they get Connor Hellebuyck? I really want to know what you guys think down below. I know I got a lot of shout-out to my Devils fans here in the chat. You guys will definitely be letting me know what you think, but I think this is a really interesting conversation because I think the Jets have a little bit of leverage for a Hellebuyck trade, but the longer this drags on into the summer, the less leverage they have. And I think it's ideal for the Jets to move him now. A member of the community here at Goal Line Hockey commented saying they work around the rink up there in Winnipeg. And they said that apparently Connor, again, this is all rumors and hearsay, and this person said this and this person said that. So take it with a grain of salt. But Connor Hellebuyck's wife and his family apparently haven't been overly happy in Winnipeg. And apparently there's some feuds in the locker room. So I think this whole rumors around Hellebuyck is definitely something to put your attention toward, because I think there's some real legitimacy here. And I think it's smart for Kevin Cheveldayoff and the Jets to keep things kind of low-key and just kind of spring the trade on, because the amount of buzz that a Hellebuyck trade would have on the marketplace, a lot of teams would be looking at, in my opinion, the Vezina Trophy winner here in 2023. It's just a matter of where he goes and what's the price going to be, right? And is there going to be a sign-in trade, right? Because there would be more value on a Hellebuyck trade if a team knew they could get a sign-in trade done immediately after bringing him in. Or is it one of those things where you're taking a risk and you have to worry about, are we going to sign him or not, right? So let me know what you guys think down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time. Peace.